Welcome from the Holler Broadcasting Studios here at the Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative in Hazard, Kentucky. I'm Robert Brown, Policy Analyst for KVEC.
I'm Jennifer Carroll, Professional Learning Lead for the Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative.
And this is one of many, if not of our broadcasts that we'll be having around micro-credentials and other topics of interest. This is our first micro-credential coffee chat, or coffee and water chat, as Jennifer pointed out that she has today. So what we're going to be doing today is speaking with you about our micro-credential work. And to start off with, KVEC has been involved with working with micro-credentials for several years. We've had 3 successful national micro-credential summits. Our last micro-credential summit had 25 representations from states across the nation, up to 150 participants. So it was very successful. I think one of the things that was asked of me, and I had my own thoughts about is, why are you having these summits? So I think it's a good question for us to begin with our conversation. So how would you address that?
Gosh, I think we're at a place nationally where folks are really looking to find stronger, more rigorous models of professional learning that can engage educators in what we are calling here at KVEC clinical professional learning, so that our educators, teachers and administrators can actually apply their professional learning in the context of their work, so within their classrooms or within their schools or within their communities. And this type of competency-based professional learning is new. It's very different from other models that we've had, and there are so many things to talk out, to really look at best practice around the design of that kind of professional learning, the assessment of that kind of professional learning, and then the policies and the processes and the practices that are guiding the implementation of that work. And I really think that those summits are a way for us to bring all of those thought partners together so that we can do this work in a very deliberate and thoughtful way so that it's done correctly. And we can really move from that compliance approach to professional learning to truly being the providers and the creators of opportunities for all educators to engage in that kind of professional learning. That I always like to think about it in, professional learning should really do 2 things. It should improve professional practice of the educator, and at the same time be advancing student outcomes in the classroom. And past models of professional learning haven't always guaranteed both of those things. We haven't had a way to actually see the evidence of the learning. So when we can have all 25 different agencies together talking about how we can advance professional learning that improves professional practice and advances student outcomes, it's too good of an opportunity not to cabbage on. And your leadership around that work has been amazing. The fact that you've been able to bring those folks together and have this work going in a common direction and starting to see these different offshoots of white papers and guiding principles and the things that are coming out of this work, it's tremendous.
It is tremendous. And as we're having those conversations with those other states, with the telephone calls, the Zoom meetings, the task force sessions that we've been going to, you hear this common thread happening that as long as we focus on our students, and to get the students what they need, we've got to get the tools in the teacher's hands. And competency-based learning is a valuable tool. It's part of a larger competency-based professional learning system. It's not the only part of this. I think I enjoy what Rob Baker says, our Associate Commissioner of the Department, as we're looking at a competency-based program. Micro-credentials is a major component, but it's not the only component. However, it's a tool to leverage mentoring, networking, coaching, and evidence gathering. So I think it is extremely important. But you said something that triggered another thought. I've been reading a report, and I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm not finished with this report, but it's Making Micro-Credentials Work for Learners, Employers, and Providers by Emeritus Professor Beverly Oliver of Deakin University. It's August 2019 version. And in her report on page 18, she says, there is as yet no universally agreed definition or spelling of micro-credentials. And I think we have found that out as we're having these conversations. So coming from the KVEC perspective, in our own words, as we talk to folks, we have our way of explaining. So how would you define that if someone were to ask you, what's a micro-credential?
Oh, well, It's great, is what I would say. I think a micro-credential is a form of competency-based professional learning that is clinical in nature. So it allows an educator, whether it be a teacher or an administrator, to actually seek professional learning aligned to either personal need and or school need, to engage in practitioner-driven professional learning. So it meets me where I am in terms of my need. It lets me grow as much as I want to in order to actually demonstrate a skill or competency with evidence and artifacts that I collect from my practice. So I always talk about the fact that, I've been in education for 29 years, and I have done a lot of professional learning in my time, actually been in the seat and doing the actual presenting. And at the end of a traditional face-to-face PD session, we will give a participant a certificate. And all that certificate says is you've done a really good job of sitting in that chair. Because we don't get to follow the educator back into their classroom. We don't get to see the evidence of their practice. We don't get to see the impact on student learning. But with a micro-credential, there are different ways that evidence and artifacts can be collected depending on the design of that micro-credential. So it could be video, it could be a lesson plan, it could be student work, it could be interviews, it could be all of those things combined to show evidence of the development and the mastery of a skill and competency. And then it takes it to another level, because that micro-credential gives that educator the opportunity to reflect on their practice. They can look at their video, they can look at the lessons that they have designed, they can look at the student work, and they can really reflect, why did I decide to seek this micro-credential? What was the need that I was trying to fill? How did this micro-credential help me to do that? What is the impact on my professional practice? What is the impact on my student learning? And what are my next steps in this trajectory of professional growth that I'm engaged in? And to me, it's just so powerful, because finally there's a way, as all the other professional fields that we know of, whether it be medical or law or business, people actually engage in their professional learning as a part of their practice. It's job embedded. We've heard that word so often, but the word clinical really means that I am doing it in the middle of my practice. I don't take time out of my day to go learn something and then come back to my day. It happens within my day. And it's such a professional way to treat educators that they have needed for so long.
It is. I think it gets us away from, okay, how many clock hours do I need? Yeah. To stop thinking in those terms of seat time. But okay, I see I need it for my students. I either have that skill and I want to improve that skill, or I need that skill. I can go on with a micro-credential, find one I need, or if I can't find one, work with other teachers to develop a professional learning opportunity to meet the needs of my students. So that would be the only thing I would add to that great explanation. So at the end of our summit last year, we had a survey and asked several questions, and we had some responses, and I picked a few out that I think captured a takeaway from our experience. I just want us to address some of these. One of these was the majority of the participants in state leadership recognize there is great benefit for this model of professional learning to impact student learning and achievement. Other than what you just answered in your last, do you have anything else you can add to that comment?
Well, I think what the work that KVEC is doing under the leadership of Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Bowling is phenomenal in the fact that, we have operated under that model for so long that professional learning, the currency for that was seat time. And now as we're moving toward really credentialing learning and improved practice, we are starting to see educators, teachers, and principals that are wanting to design those types of professional learning experiences for their students. So I think we have to start to also embrace micro-credentials or badging for students as part of this conversation too? And how do we help educators look at that so that kids are engaged in competency-based learning so that they can actually collect evidence and artifacts of their thinking and of their growth, and how we bring that into the conversation too?
And I think it's important when you keep using the word educators, and the reason that's important is we're not talking about classroom teachers only. We're talking about involving the principals, district staff, in the creation, the learning of this, so that we can develop a district or a state process of professional learning as part of a system.
And classified staff could do this too, because we have so many phenomenal classified people that are working in our schools and working directly with kids that can be also improving their practice and capturing that evidence of their growth with the kids they're working with.
And I think of this, and as we struggle with the teacher shortages that are hitting the nation, and in Kentucky's, we're not immune to that.
Especially in our region.
Right. Looking at, folks that are coming from other areas, talented teachers coming in, MIcro-Credential, and getting some of those just-in-time learning that they keep doing a few hours or a week or two to get that competency, to get that badge, and help move them forward. So from that, you mentioned support staff, I see that being extended to our alternative certified teachers, our collaborations between our universities and our district folks. I think there's such an opportunity for collaboration among the educators of a whole system.
And a large group that we have in our region are new teachers, new and inexperienced teachers. And without a formal state-led induction program, these teachers are really looking for ways, they have so many skills that they need, from everything from classroom management to designing instruction to classroom engagement to how do I even ask an effective question. And these folks don't want to take time out of their classroom to go travel to Lexington or Frankfurt or Louisville for a professional development session. They want to stay with their kids, and this gives them an opportunity to do that.
It does, because it's online, it's accessible from any place, at school, at home, on their planning during PLCs, any place that they have time, they're able to do this. So I think that's fantastic. Another thought that came out from the survey, MIcro-Credentials are part of an integrated support system. The culture of teachers as professionals already needs to be in place in order for this to be a vehicle for effective professional learning. So in thinking about that in the culture piece, how do we see the MIcro-Credential or competency-based learning fitting into changing the culture of professional learning?
Oh gosh. Well, I think we've talked around it some already, but thinking about moving away from that idea that we have to the amount of time that teachers are receiving professional learning. We have to give them the freedom to really analyze their own practice to determine what their professional learning needs are. And sometimes that involves doing some peer coaching with each other. Come into my classroom, Robert, and be another set of eyes and help me to look at my practice and what I'm doing and how I can be better. And then I can go seek those micro-credentials that are truly aligned to my needs. We have so many models of schools in our region that are doing different things with micro-credentials. We have Allen Elementary, that through the work they're doing with another KVEC project, through their ACT network, their Activating Catalytic Transformation, they are all focused on one particular area of growth for their school and involved in a continuous improvement cycle to work on that, and that is around engagement. And every teacher in that building worked on a micro-credential related to engagement, and they worked on it together in a professional learning community. So I think it really starts, micro-credentials can really help be a piece of that, tying together all of that continuous improvement work that schools are doing, where we identify a problem of practice, we identify a logic model, a theory of action that we're going to engage in to solve that problem of practice. And in that theory, there's areas of growth that everybody has to make, and it may be different staff person to staff person. And so I can seek that. So no more do we have that culture that we're all going to get 6 hours of the writing process, whether we need it or not. We're gonna
or technology.
or whatever. Or can I see what you put in your growth plan so I can put it in mine? It's really moving us toward being able to seek that personalized professional learning that we all need.
And I think it takes away, you mentioned it takes away the isolation of a teacher in that classroom. It takes away the isolation of a school in a district. It takes away the isolation of districts within a state. They can all collaborate together. They can all visit each other. They can all learn. And as we're finding out through our summits, it takes away the isolation of a state. So multiple states are coming together and having conversations, which leads us up to the next topic. Looking at this at the state level and national level, there's a lot of things going on. So let's talk about it just for a few more minutes before our session ends, some of the things that are happening at the state level and national level.
Well, I think Kentucky has always been very progressive as a state as it looks at how we can improve education. And I think the work that's going on through the Division of Educational Licensure, used to be the Educational Professional Standards Board, them being able to, I mean, they were participants in our summit, and they were very tuned in to the conversations that people were having. Our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Wayne Lewis, was at the summit. And for them to be there really thinking differently about how competency-based professional learning can fold into relicensure and maybe even initial certification. They're exploring ways through some continuing options that folks can actually get their rank 2 or their rank 1 through additional ways that might include micro-credentials. So it's very exciting that Kentucky is at the forefront again around things related to professional learning and advancing the professional growth and effectiveness of our educators. And it's really great that your leadership here at KVEC is helping tie us to that communication that's going on at the state level. But then at the national level, it's also so great to see all of these different entities coming together to have conversations about what are best practices around competency-based professional learning that would include micro-credentials. Your leadership has helped us to be on a task force that includes representatives from Digital Promise and the Council for Chief State School Officers and NEA and the National Board. So that group is really coming together to say, what are those design principles that people need to kind of have in common around the actual development and design of a micro-credential, the assessment of a micro-credential to make sure that we're truly assessing it against the standards that we said that the educator had to demonstrate, but then also the implementation. How do we help the educator, the school, the district, and the state think differently about professional learning, and what are those things that people need to be aware of as they design those policies and practices around micro-credentials. So the fact that it's such collaborative work going on around this I think it's truly wonderful. I've never seen this type of culture around professional learning in all the years that I've been involved in education.
I haven't either, and just in some of the conversations and getting invited to come and participate or to present, and you think about the folks that came to our summit, and I hate to mention names because you always take the risk of leaving someone out that you don't, but when folks like Barnett Berry of the Center of Teacher Quality, Marianne Wolf of the Variety Institute, Michelle Mills, Tennisburg Education, Sue Beers from MICRO in Iowa, folks from all over the nation coming to talk about this work. And then organizations like WESTAT and NASDAQ, CCSSO, all focused on competency-based learning and how micro-credentials can help change the direction of professional learning. I think the national conversation is moving forward. We have state departments in all states having conversations who have adopted policies. Arkansas, Kentucky has now have policies going forward. In Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, etc. They have policies. Tennessee, again, North Carolina. I don't want to, because there's so many that are moving this direction. So, and then we have higher ed looking at how are micro-credentials going to change the face of how we prepare teachers or be part of the continuous learning system. Again, the report that I'm reading, that is a concern, how we can make that connection more viable and impactful. So I think as we have those conversations, and we've already scheduled our next conference for May of 2020, for May 5th and 6th in Louisville, Kentucky, what are some things that participants can expect when they come to Louisville in May? What are some things you would like to see happen at that conference?
Well, just continuing on that trajectory of good work that's already going on as a part of those summits, but I think really getting folks together to have those conversations that meet people again where they are, because we have people coming to that summit who really are not familiar with micro-credentials, but they want to learn more about it. So how can we help meet their needs so they get a lot of that foundational knowledge? But then how can we bring all of these thought partners together to really continue this work of developing guidance and resources and support to schools, to districts, to states, to national organizations about how we can really truly change this culture of professional learning. So it's those times to network and have conversations about how we can work together around this work. Kentucky is working, or KVEC is working right now on a stack of micro-credentials for teaching rural students of poverty, because that's who we work with. We work with those students who live in rural and remote areas, but also have that challenge of dealing with poverty. And so how do teachers really understand the types of poverty that our students are coming from? Because they could be coming from multiple types. They could be coming from that generational, situational. They're coming from different ways that they have fell into this challenging life of living in poverty. So how do we help teachers understand the types of poverty that students are living in? How do we help them build relationships with students and families who are living in those situations? How do we help deal with that social and emotional and trauma-informed kind of care that they have to employ to deal successfully and teach successfully those students that we are so blessed to work with every day? So we're developing a stack of micro-credentials around that. And how do we share that with other places that are also dealing with those same kinds of challenges? And then also, how can we learn from them about the things that they are doing? So that actual collaborative work that has emerged out of each of those networks and putting us in touch with so many people nationally that are doing great work, I think that truly is what I hope to see continue out of our next Micro-Credential Summit.
I hope to see that continue. I also hope, and this will be, our planning will make this happen, is to have the practitioners that are working through this to share their experiences, to show how it has changed the culture and climate of their classrooms and school, how it's changed the culture of their district as schools are coming together around common issues and creating micro-credentials around common problems, how universities and districts can work together to make this a unified plan for addressing issues of a region or of a state. So I think there are many things that will happen. Again, having some of the representation from other states talk about what they're doing, but also getting to that ground roots, because some of the people, like you said, come and they're at the ground roots. So getting into, okay, here are some micro-credentials. Let's go through these. Let's look at what they mean. Because I know we had conversations, folks talk about, well, what's the assessment like? How do you know the learning's taking place? By walking through some of these, you address some of those issues, especially since it is research-based, and you can demonstrate the research that supports the work that the teachers will be involved, or that principals will be involved, and the resources that are at their disposal because they're identified within the micro-credential. So it's a one-stop place to go. So I think that would be exciting to see happen next year.
And something I think a lot of our schools are starting to see is that this embedding of professional learning in the classroom is trickling over to students, because students are seeing their teachers learning, and they know that their teachers are working on this micro-credential, and that they're trying, they're submitting something that's going to be assessed, and the kids are asking their teachers, well, how did you do? And, did you pass? And then the teachers are celebrating with their students, we passed, we've got the, and I think the students seeing their teachers as lifelong learners is really helping to build that collaborative culture, even in a classroom.
And that is, I want to say powerful, but the word comes to mind is awesome. That is just awesome. So, but Jennifer, I think this has been a great conversation, and I look forward to continuing these, and I hope some of you out there will join in as we continue with other conversations and other Zoom meetings around micro-credentials and other topics. And Jennifer, you'll end us out?
I gotta say it. We'll holler at you later.
Thank you.